Effective interest rate. Now, effective interest rate is a different idea from interest rate when we don't have the word effective before it. Because whenever we mention an interest rate, and that interest rate applies over the entire period. The entire period of your depositing money and you're collecting it. But effective interest rate is the interest rate over a certain period. So we can, even in, let's say you deposited money for 10 years, we can talk about an effective interest rate over each year. So there will be one universal interest rate that will be going on, which will apply to all the 10 years. And then there could be talk of effective interest rate over different periods in those 10 years. So like over each year, or it could be over each 6 months, or over each month, or whatever period we are interested in. So the symbol for the effective rate during the nth period is IN. And the definition of effective interest rate is that it's the ratio of the interest earned during the nth period divided by the accumulated amount at the beginning of the nth period. So big I subscript N is the interest earned during the nth period, and A of n minus 1 is the accumulated amount at the beginning of the nth period. So for example, interest rate during the first period, so as we mentioned early on, that the little letters are for the rates and the big letters are for the actual amount, dollar amount of interest. So little I1 would be the interest rate, the effective interest rate over the first period, and which according to this formula would be I1, big I1, which would be the interest earned during the first period, divided by A of 0. And A of 0 is the accumulated value at the beginning of the first period. Because remember, we are saying that A of n minus 1 is the accumulated value at the beginning of the nth period. So A of 0 is nothing but the principal, because at the beginning of the first year, your account hasn't yet earned any interest. And so the account value at that time is the principal. So A of 0 is nothing but the principal. And now this is something which we actually got in lesson 1. In lesson 1, we were talking about just one period, and therefore the effective rate and the effective interest rate and the interest rate are the same thing in that case when you're just depositing money for one period. And in that case, remember, we had this formula that the interest rate is I over P, and I is the interest earned and P is the principal. And we just figured out that A of 0 is the same thing as the principal. So what we are developing now is a more generalized notion of that earlier idea, that interest rate equals I over P, and that applies only when there's just one period in the problem. And therefore, in that case, this is the first period formula from above matches exactly that formula. Now, also note one thing, that IN, which is the interest amount, not the interest rate, but the interest amount earned during the nth period, that's the account value at the beginning of the n plus first period minus the account value at the beginning of the nth period. So right now, the way we have this notation, AN minus 1 is the account value at the beginning of the nth period. So there's a difference. Here we have n minus 1 and here we have n. So if you want to match these up, then you can say that AN minus 1 is the total value of the account at the end of the N minus first period. So because beginning of the, for example, beginning of the third period is the same as the end of the second period, right? So either you say AN minus 1 is the value of the account at the beginning of the nth period, or you say AN minus 1 is the value of the account at the end of the N minus first period. So if you use the word end, then the subscripts here and the letter here will match. I mean, the argument here and the letter here will match. So here, this one can be read as interest amount in the nth period equals the accumulated value at the end of the nth period minus the accumulated value at the end of the n minus first period. So for example, the interest amount earned during the fourth period will be the accumulated value at the end of the fourth period minus the accumulated value at the end of the third period. So because of this formula, the above one where we had little in equals big IN over AN minus 1, if we replace big IN with this, AN minus 1, so the formula for little in becomes AN minus 1 over AN minus 1. So let's do an example. So let's say that the amount function A of t is equal to 10 times 2 power t, and you have to find I4, the effective interest rate during the fourth period. So we can use this formula here. So here n is equal to 4. N is the number corresponding to the period in which you have to find the effective rate. So I4 would be A of 4 minus A of 3 over A of 3. So A of 4, according to this formula, would be 10 times 2 to the 4 minus A3 would be 10 times 2 to the 3 divided by A3. And this simplifies to a 1. And since usually we give the interest rate in terms of percentages, 1 means 100%.